can!
It's almost!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance.
Hi, welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get the show started. Right on the show today, Pakistan cricket makes waves again, just not the right kind. The PCB has done it once more. They've incurred mammoth losses thanks to a lopsided logistical nightmare of a Champions Trophy. And that has had an adverse impact on their own cricketers. I'll tell you how in the show. Lewis Hamilton starts off on the worst possible note with Ferrari. The two drivers finish 8th and 10th on a tricky Melbourne circuit. What went wrong and what does this mean for the legendary British driver who became a Red with hopes of a turnaround? And today we bring you a special focus on a teenager who's giving the best in the business a run for their money. Tennis star Mirra Andreeva just won her second ATP 1000 title and joined an elite list with Serena Williams and Steffi Graf. What makes her special and what's that special prize that she values more than the WTA titles themselves? Stay on for more on that, but first a look at the headlines on Sports 360. Moving to football, Newcastle United ended their 56-year-long trophy drought after beating Liverpool 2-1 in the Carabao Cup final. Dan Burns' 45th minute goal put Newcastle ahead. Alexander Isak scored the winner in the 52nd minute. The club last won a major title, the Fairs Cup, way back in 1969. Meanwhile, in France, a Ligue 1 match between Montpellier and Saint-Étienne was abandoned due to fires. Montpellier fans threw flares in the stands during the second half of the game while their side was trailing 2-0. Players of both the teams were sent back and frustrated fans trashed the seats. While the fire was extinguished, the game didn't start due to security concerns. Montpellier is likely to face a heavy penalty. In tennis, 13th seed Jack Draper beat Holger Rune in straight sets to win the Indian Wells Masters title. This is Draper's first ATP 1000 title and only the 5th British player to win so. Following the win, Draper moved to 7th spot in the ATP World Rankings. And we'll sum it up with NBA. LeBron James-less Los Angeles Lakers beat Phoenix Suns 107-96. James was ruled out of the fixture due to a leg injury. The power forward last played against Boston Celtics last week. Reportedly, James is set to miss another week of action, a period where Lakers will play 4 matches to secure a spot in the playoffs. A Champions Trophy that was supposed to bring Pakistan cricket back from beyond, showcase the country and become a resounding success has only spelt doom for the host nation. Exiting without winning a single game was one thing, but it's been a financial and logistical nightmare for Pakistan. They have had to incur an 85% loss after spending nearly $58 million on the tournament. Holding an ICC event is a matter of great pride and, yes, importantly, financial gains. That, unfortunately, has not been the case for Pakistan with regards to the Champions Trophy. While this itself is bad news, there's more. A financial loss such as this one has had a ripple effect. But first, let's understand where they spent all the money and how much they actually lost. According to reports, Pakistan spent $58 million, as I mentioned earlier, that was spent in upgrading the venues. Lahore, Karachi and Rawalpindi, the 3 stadiums that hosted all their set of matches. This was 50% more than their budget. On top of this, they spent $40 million on the event itself. That was their expenditures. What did they make during the tournament? They only received $6 million as part of the hosting fee and the change from ticket sales and sponsorship, amounting to a loss of $85 million. Such a financial capitulation has left a huge impact, and I'll tell you where. It's on the players. The T20 Championship, the National T20 Championship, is setting a cut in match fees. Players who used to get a match fee of $144 got pulled down to $36. And it would have stayed that way if Mohsin Naqvi, the PCB chief, had not intervened, only slashing it marginally, but still a cut. And reports say players have been bumped off from 5-star accommodations to budget economy hotels. The PCB chief may have stepped in here to try and not make it all too gloomy for the players, but it's been a cut. Here's how I see it. The Champions Trophy fiasco blew up, resulting in the PCB incurring a financial setback. Not something they wanted and certainly didn't hope for. But what that's done is affected the players. The financial misstep during the conduct of the ICC event has clearly directly impacted the players' earnings. And PCB do not seem to be making amends post this debacle. They've slotted the PSL, the Pakistan Super League, which also attracts players from around the globe, in the same window as that of the Indian Premier League, the IPL, which has put the success of their league in jeopardy. Competing with the IPL, while it's very ambitious, can only act as a boomerang. And the first sign of a backlash has already arrived. It involves a South African player, Corbin Bosch. He was picked up by the PSL franchise Peshawar Zalmi in the PSL draft that took place on the 13th of January. That's early this year. But as soon as he was announced as a replacement for the injured Lizard Williams in the Mumbai Indians franchise, which is part of the IPL, Corbin promptly withdrew from the PSL to be part of the IPL instead. The more lucrative option of the two, at least definitely on paper. The PCB, furious with this turn of events, sent a legal notice to Bosch demanding an explanation after being contracted to playing in the PSL to refusing and withdrawing from it. Of course, this was bound to happen, with PSL dates overlapping that of the IPL for the first time since 2016. The Champions Trophy window did not help the PCB in their scheduling concerns, sure, but could they have done something different to avoid this from happening in the first place? After all, this was all known months before. The Champions Trophy schedule was drawn up a long time back. Is PCB mismanagement the reason for such setbacks that has affected not just their own players, but their league too, a league that they really need to focus on to grow and succeed? What are your thoughts? Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton, kickstarted their campaign at the Australian Grand Prix with a lot of excitement and anticipation. But just like the rainy weather proved to be a bit of a dampener in Melbourne, so did Hamilton's Ferrari debut. The defending constructors' champions McLaren started from where they left last season, with Lando Norris finishing on top. It was business as usual for Max Verstappen and Red Bull, who came in second, and Hamilton's former teammate, Mercedes' George Russell, grabbed the final spot on the podium. But for Ferrari, it was all chaotic. Ferrari debutant Lewis Hamilton finished 10th, and Charles Leclerc took the 8th position, a result that saw mixed reactions online. And the reason why some fans were left frustrated was because Ferrari's chaotic preps were for all to see, right from the moment they landed in Melbourne, following the weeks of trials, pre-season testing, and a grand show in Italy where fans were given hope of the glory old days coming back. Ferrari drivers Leclerc and Hamilton finished 7th and 8th on the grid while qualifying. They walked into the race already trailing their competitors, and it isn't just the result that raised concerns. The otherwise calm Ferrari camp got an earful from both drivers over their decisions. Coupled with the changing weather conditions in Melbourne, it was indeed a horror show for this team.
We lost 3 or 4 positions, which was then very difficult to recover. We overtook 1 or 2 guys on track, but then we were a bit too late for the pit stop, and then we lost a few other positions. We made the wrong call because I think the best option was to pit the same lap as Max, and we made the wrong call at this stage.
And it's not like there was some issue with the car. It was quite simply Ferrari's failure to get the most from it.
It was really very, very tricky. Really, really tricky today. I think we can improve that in the next race, hopefully, and get the car in a sweeter spot. I think there's a lot more potential in the car than what we were able to extract today.
Well, Hamilton surely seemed very calm saying all that, and very hopeful too of things to come and a turnaround, but it ought to be frustrating to be behind that wheel and going through a race that was riddled with errors. The question though is, how long will the 7-time world champion stay quiet if these mistakes continued? Sure, it was still a first race for Ferrari with Hamilton and a tough season opener, but it wasn't just Hamilton who finished outside the podium. Another driver who's been with Ferrari over 7 years, Charles Leclerc, finishing 8th, just makes it all the more worse. Because here's a driver who brought Ferrari close to winning the Constructors only last year. He himself finished 3rd in the drivers' standings. So the reason for this damp squib of a show clearly wasn't just down to niggle and nerves of a debut race for Hamilton. It was the shortcomings of a Ferrari team as a whole that led to such a poor outcome. A good time as any for the entire unit to remind themselves why this partnership was forged in the first place, to turn things around a whole way to winning titles again, not just finishing races. One way of looking at this, of course, which is what Ferrari should do, is be glad that such a show came at the start of a season. A jolt in the beginning can only mean an early wake-up call. Much better than a spanner in the wheels when things are all smooth. Because if they really want to challenge the top contenders for the title, they need to forget the opening race and focus on how they lost some of their opportunities during it. Maybe the team needs to use the simulator to erase the memories of this Australian Grand Prix, like they did to make Hamilton erase what driving for Mercedes felt like, and focus on the changes they will have to make for the races coming up. There's a new cub on the block, and she's taking tennis world by storm. Russia's Mirra Andreeva has added yet another WTA 1000 title, her second in less than a month, and she's only 17. The teenager became part of an elite list that has legends like Serena Williams and Steffi Graf, and the Andreeva rise has come in some style. The Russian first beat world number 2 Iga Swiatek in the semi-final, and then world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka to win the Indian Wells Masters. And while 2 WTA 1000 titles are itself big for a teenager, Andreeva is still waiting for an even bigger prize that her parents have promised. Our next report tells you more.
The women's tennis world for years has struggled to find a poster lady. Following the dominance of the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, women's tennis has had different Grand Slam winners in the past decade. The past 3 years though, the WTA found 2 players who have tried to dominate. On clay, it has been world number 2 Iga Swiatek, and on the hard courts, world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka. But the two are most definitely facing some tough competition from a newcomer who is threatening to dethrone them. Taking women's tennis by storm is a teenager who has been on the rise. Russia's Mirra Andreeva. The 17-year-old beat the top 2 WTA-ranked players to win the Indian Wells Masters over the weekend. First, Iga Swiatek 6-7, 1-6, 6-3 in the semi-final, and then Aryna Sabalenka 2-6, 6-4, 6-3 in the final. This not just earned her a second WTA title, but also helped her become part of an elite list that has 2 of the greats of the game, Serena Williams and Steffi Graf. For the first time since 1999, Andreeva became the first under-18 to beat the world number 1 and the world number 2 at the same event. She surpassed Serena Williams, who did that at 17 years and 11 months. And Andreeva is only the 4th player to do so. Her rise hasn't just happened overnight. She was the WTA Newcomer of the Year in 2023. At the Paris Olympics last year, she won the silver in the doubles event. But her real dominance started earlier this year. First the Dubai Championship last month, and now the Indian Wells Masters. A promising start for a young sensation, right? But in addition to these trophies, Andreeva is still waiting for a bigger prize. Her mum promised her if she could break into the WTA top 20 that she will get a puppy. And ever since then, Andreeva's goal has been that.
I was always checking live rankings because before I was playing for a dog. So after every match I play, I would check the live rankings to see if I did it.
Following the Indian Wells Masters, Andreeva has reached a career high ranking of 6th. So why hasn't the puppy arrived yet? Well, just like her tennis career, Andreeva is seeking perfection here too.
I am thinking to get an ultra mini Labradoodle. It's going to be a Labrador mixed with Poodle. And it's ultra mini, so going to be even smaller than a mini version. It's going to take time until the dog that I want will be born. We wait for now.
Just like she's waiting to perfect her time on court and in the WTA circuit, she's waiting to get to a point where she can take care of the dog with the same level of maturity.
I want to buy a dog when I'm super confident that I will be able to give everything I can to the dog, because it's like a little child. I need to get more mature so I can take care of my dog.
But if beating the top 2 in the world, despite losing 1 set each time at a WTA 1000 event, isn't a sign of maturity, then what is? She held on to her nerves to surpass 2 players who have been clinical in recent years. Or maybe Andreeva is waiting to become a Grand Slam winner before she rewards herself with a dog, resetting her goal every time she wins, just like a true champion. Quite sure that moment won't be too long away.
Time for Last Serve. A unique cycle race kicked off in Western Cape, South Africa. It's called Cape Epic, an event where teams of 2 compete over 8 days. Watch all the cyclists ride through a steep wine estate, even tackling the challenging Stairway to Heaven ascent. Take a look. We wrap up Firstpost on that note. Do tune in again tomorrow when I see you. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.